Right now, the Russians are entering Pokrovsk. This is the real situation. NATO is breaking through with extremely powerful equipment. Ukraine is being armed to the teeth. This has happened for the first time. The last battle for Dnipropetrovsk region. There has never been such fierce resistance before. The occupiers choked on Chasiv Yar and launched a new drone into the sky. The Ukrainian Armed Forces have shown our drone response. More about all this in our episode Hell Point. The Russians are bombarding Pokrovsk with everything they have and shouting about victory. But it's too soon for that. The city is still standing. Ukrainian defenders, like a blade, cut through the enemy and strike where Putin's army least expects it. The Kremlin has pushed itself into a trap. The final chord comes from the fierce drones of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Crucial logistics are left in ruins. Will the occupiers really have to flee home on foot and empty-handed after this? All this coming up in a moment.
Meanwhile, on the front line, Russia is advancing slowly at the cost of human wave assaults and colossal losses. The main attack is now focused on the Donetsk direction, particularly on the city of Pokrovsk, a strategically important logistics hub. And although the capture of the city of Rodinsk and the surrounding villages may increase pressure on the Ukrainian defense, it is too early to talk about a full breakthrough.
The occupiers are trying to organize an operational encirclement of Ukraine's defense forces by flanking maneuvers in the area of Mirnohrad and accordingly on the other flank in Novoekonomikne. At one point, the occupying forces managed to wedge into the positions of Ukraine's defense forces along the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka highway near the Malinivska interchange. Subsequently, the Russians expanded their area of presence and are advancing toward Mirnohrad. The primary objective of the Russian occupying forces is to establish control over the logistics of Ukraine's defense forces, particularly the sole road by which Ukraine's defense forces rotate personnel, evacuate the wounded, and deliver essential ammunition. This is the road located near the settlement of Rodinsk.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian fighters from the Star 4 unit of the 14th Operational Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine are striking the enemy at the mine east of Rodinsk. Interestingly, according to the 7th Corps of the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces, Russia has set the objective of reaching the southern outskirts of Pokrovsk by September 1st. Ambitious. From drones, the occupiers are dropping leaflets urging local residents to reveal the positions of the defense forces. It seems that, aside from manipulating and intimidating the locals, the invaders no longer know how to move forward. As for the Sumy direction, the defense forces there managed to stabilize the situation thanks to a series of counterattacks and to seize the tactical initiative. At the moment, the so-called railway war is gaining momentum there.
What did Ukraine decide to do? Ukraine decided to target logistics, specifically the railway, because hitting military targets is more difficult since they are all protected. It's hard to get to them. The success rate keeps fluctuating. The rate of successful hits. But the railway is long. There are many different nodes, components, and hubs, and you can't cover all of them with air defense. So Ukraine is trying to influence Russian logistics this way. Not just military, but also civilian. They hit all sorts of distribution cabinets, traction substations, basically everything that controls train movement. We know that if a train stops, there's a second, third, fourth, and fifth one behind it. And it's not just, a diesel locomotive. There could be 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60 freight cars attached. And they can be stuck there for several hours or even several days. And in this way, the movement of this type of transport is paralyzed and blocked.
The Kremlin has trapped itself. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has deliberately created a wartime society through repression, propaganda, and making its economy dependent on the defense industry. Any pause now is not just a sign of political weakness, it's a blow to internal stability.
Russian state and independent polls conducted at the beginning of 2025 showed that the majority of Russians support continuing the war in Ukraine. And the Kremlin will likely use these sentiments, which it actively fuels, to justify Putin's decision to continue the war. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War.
Over 4 years of large-scale invasion, the Russian occupation army's advantage for the Russian Federation lies in its overwhelming superiority in air power and manpower. And as we can see, not even the intermediate stages of the special military operation have been accomplished. Moreover, on certain fronts, Ukraine's defense forces have seized the tactical initiative. This refers to the successful actions of Ukraine's defense forces in the Kharkiv and Sumy regions, which have undermined the political statements of the Russian dictator about creating a so-called buffer zone, and accordingly the plans of the general staff of the occupying country's army to expand the theater of operations at the expense of other Ukrainian regions not included in the Russian Federation by the dictator's decree of September 30th, 2022.
While the West searches for levers of influence on the White House and sends special envoys for negotiations, Putin is betting on a protracted war. But in this scenario, there is one variable: time. And contrary to the Kremlin's confidence, it does not work in Russia's favor. Radio, literally every month of war wears down not only Ukraine, but also the resources of the empire itself. Its collapse may be closer than it seems from the bunker. Radio.
For the first time, it became known which steel beasts will break through to the front lines. The Netherlands shocked everyone. NATO countries have never done anything like this before. The US is trying not to fall behind. Columns of Patriot weapons are already on their way to Ukraine. This is causing panic among the enemy. The front is starting to waver. A direct course for revenge. More details about the transfer of weapons, which are set for the total elimination of the enemy, in the following report. Radio.
New aid to Ukraine from the Netherlands. The country announced the package the day before. It will include American Patriot batteries and missiles for them worth 500 million euros.
Ukraine now needs more air defense and ammunition. This will help Ukraine protect itself and the rest of Europe from Russian aggression. Ruben Brekel, Minister of Defense of the Netherlands.
In Ukraine, Radio Ukraine has already welcomed such a step by the Netherlands. Radio.
This is the first such step among NATO countries, and at a time when Russia is trying to scale up its strikes, it will definitely help protect the lives of our people. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine.
Radio. In the near future, several more countries will announce the allocation of funds for the purchase of American weapons for Ukraine, said U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker. He said that the Netherlands became the first country to use the new mechanism for financing the supply of American weapons to the Ukrainian Armed Forces.
I think we will see this move very quickly, certainly in the coming weeks, but some even sooner. The Netherlands are just the first of many. You will see a number of announcements in the coming weeks.
Radio. In the coming days, Germany is set to provide 2 air defense systems in exchange for being the first to receive new Patriots from the United States. Radio.
The US and NATO are launching a new mechanism to support Ukraine. The goal of this mechanism is to ensure the rapid delivery to Ukraine of systems and weaponry, which can be supplied in large quantities by the US in order to strengthen Ukraine's position and create the conditions for achieving a just and lasting peace. Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense of Ukraine. Radio.
So now, NATO countries will buy weapons from the US and supply them to Ukraine, financing the mechanism through voluntary contributions from member states, and then the United States will use those funds to replenish its own stockpiles. This initiative is the result of agreements between the presidents of Ukraine, the US, and the NATO Secretary General.
Right now, we are considering ensuring direct deliveries of Patriot systems from the US to Ukraine. The structures have been established and the infrastructure and logistics are in place. American arsenals, of course, will be available, but Europeans will still be the ones paying. And in the long run, the United States of America will be able to protect itself. Radio.
The new initiative, which has been named the Priority List of Needs for Ukraine, is being coordinated specifically by the alliance. It involves compiling a list of equipment and ammunition based on the requests of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, ensuring NATO support, and delivering military cargo to the front lines. Radio. The main question is how quickly American weapons will reach Ukraine. Even within the alliance, they hesitate to answer, will it be a matter of years or just months? The United States has announced plans to ramp up production of its Patriot systems over the next 3 years, taking into account European purchases for Ukraine. Currently, global demand for air defense systems exceeds supply. Radio. For example, Romania, which purchased 4 batteries from the US and last year transferred one of them to Ukraine. The next 3 systems will be delivered over 2 years, but they are needed right now. After all, Russian drones occasionally violate its airspace. The most recent drone came from Brussels in March. Anna Grishina, We Are Ukraine, Marathon, United News.
On the edge, Radio Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. A real fiery cauldron. The Novopavlivka direction is under hostile pressure from both sides. The occupiers are trying to encircle the Ukrainian armed forces in an operational ring. The front line is like molten metal, ready to explode at any moment. Ukrainian defenders are holding out despite the fierce onslaught and breakthrough attempts. Russian mercenaries are launching senseless assaults, dreaming of a quick victory. But their triumphant story could end unexpectedly. What could change the course of events? We will be sure to tell you all about it in just a minute, so please stay tuned.
In such smoke from the fires, the sun sets over Dnipropetrovsk region. It is here from Donetsk region that the Russians have been trying to break through in recent months. The situation here, as along the entire eastern section of the front, is tense. The enemy wants to encircle our groups near Novopavlivka and then move toward the state border. Together with the Marines of the 35th Brigade, we move out to the positions so as not to attract unnecessary attention. The entry process unfolds in two distinct stages, yet it is executed with remarkable swiftness, ensuring that the ground, still pleasantly warmed by the sun's lingering heat, has not had sufficient time to cool down significantly. This rapid execution is crucial to prevent enemy drones equipped with advanced thermal imagers from effectively detecting any discernible movement or activity on the ground. Let's hope they don't. After unloading, the vehicles are quickly removed from the positions and the troops hide underground because of the increasing presence of enemy UAVs. The conditionally dangerous zone has moved 1.5 to 2 dozen kilometers away from the front line. It's even harder on the front line.
All clear. Good. Enemy drops are targeting them. Does this happen often? Constantly.
Because of this, Danilo and the others are noticeably nervous at the posts under attacks from enemy drones. His comrades, the brigade's units, have to fight off the Russians from 3 sides at once.
Right now, this section of the front is such that we are not letting the enemy advance into the borders of Dnipropetrovsk region. And we are currently in such a precarious and challenging place that we are being relentlessly squeezed from both opposing sides, and they are actively trying to completely cut off our vital logistics routes and effectively encircle us. That's precisely why we have direct and continuous contact with enemy infantry at our established positions every single day, without fail. Right now, yes, we are diligently watching to make absolutely certain there's no significant movement whatsoever toward our infantry forces.
The Russians are also trying to take advantage of the time when the ground, trees, and buildings haven't cooled down yet. At that time, it's almost impossible to distinguish a human signature through a thermal imager. And this has to be done because at dawn an evacuation of the wounded is planned at one of the positions, and nothing should interfere with it.
I'm on the line.
The vehicle has started moving to pick up the wounded. Something's brewing. Oops, there goes the vehicle.
Repeat.
Pechenka, how many incoming do you have?
I've got the pencils. Keep moving.
That's it, friend. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you there. Pass on the pencils and come back. Copy that?
Because of constant drone attacks, this area has turned into a living hell. We only saw the scale of it in the morning.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
What's there? What's going on there? Well, the Russians' tactics here in Dnipropetrovsk region, just like in Donetsk region, remain unchanged. The village of Novopavlivka is the first large settlement on the border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. From this vantage point, the distance to the line of contact is more than 10 kilometers. However, as you can observe, that doesn't stop the Russian forces from destroying vehicles on the streets and effectively cutting off our logistics.
The Russians have already turned Novopavlivka itself into ruins with artillery and airstrikes. Although back in the spring there was no direct threat of enemy advancement here. Local farmers even managed to sow the fields, but now the entire crop has either burned or is overripe. It's risky to harvest it and there's no one to do it. Almost all the residents have left. Mr. Vasil is one of the few who still remain in Novopavlivka. He says the village was almost completely destroyed by the Russians. There is neither electricity nor gas. The pensioner admits he left but returned because he couldn't afford life in evacuation.
Well, the older folks like myself, those who are 70, 80, or even 88 years old, they really appreciate it.
You're not thinking of leaving?
Where would I go? I already left once, and now I've come back.
Where did you go?
To Dnipro?
Why did you come back?
Otherwise, I truly believe that I would have certainly become completely homeless. I'd have to beg for money. You understand what I mean by that? So I came back.
For those who didn't leave or who returned, it's not easy here now either. Russian drones hunt both civilians and soldiers in Novopavlivka. This enemy strike drone, the Molnia, crashed near the road and failed to detonate. The resourceful Marines are taking it apart for spare parts for their own pilots.
You're quite a machine.
The pilots will find it useful. When the Russian invasion began, Kirilo was only 18. He signed a contract and joined the service. He received his first combat experience in Krinky Kherson region, and now he's fighting not far from his own home. The young man is from the already occupied village of Kostiantynopil in Donetsk region. That's 20 kilometers from Novopavlivka. He wants to liberate it and raise the flag he always carries on his combat backpack.
It's okay, only the foundation is left.
Have you tried to find out what's going on there now?
Only those who were waiting stayed behind. Everyone else left.
Are there many like that?
About 15 people, maybe 10.
But now the task for Kirilo and his comrades is to hold back the enemy, at least here. And today, that's not easy. Stanislav Kukarchuk, Vyacheslav Romandan, Oleg Kukharsky. Details on Inter-TV channel Marathon. The only news.
The Kremlin's victory mania has reached its peak. Russian propaganda has already managed to enter Chasiv Yar, though only in words. In reality, it's a loud failure and yet another pseudo-victory. Meanwhile, Kostiantynivka is putting up a determined resistance, standing like real armor and delivering daily blows to the Kremlin. In a fit of hysteria, Putin is issuing chaotic orders, while Russian assault groups are being destroyed by our military literally in the first minutes of their attacks. And while the enemy buries itself in fakes on the Lyman direction, the Ukrainian Armed Forces are breaking through the front. What is already known, watch further in the report. This
video has caused quite a stir. The Russian tricolor in Chasiv Yar. Russian propaganda is already claiming that the city has been taken and is under Russian control. However, the patriots have once again overdone it. Our fighters report that all key heights of Chasiv Yar are under the control of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, which is about 40% of the territory. At the same time, there are areas that sabotage and reconnaissance groups can't reach at all.
Well, they put up the flag, took a photo, filmed a video, and reported it up the chain. After that, the situation escalated, the information started spreading. As of today, fighting is ongoing for Chasiv Yar. The Ukrainian army is holding positions in the city, and they are quite advantageous. But at the same time, of course, part of the city is either in the gray zone or under enemy control. At present, there is no reason to claim that Chasiv Yar has been occupied by the Russian army.
But the enemy is not going to give up attempts to storm the city anytime soon. The commanding heights, which Ukrainian soldiers have been holding for over a year with inhuman effort, make it possible to maintain the most important Ukrainian logistics hub in Donbass, Kostiantynivka.
The city itself is located on a controlling elevation. If the enemy captures it and manages to secure those heights, they will gain a tactical advantage. That is precisely why these battles for Chasiv Yar are so important for the enemy. If they fully capture Chasiv Yar, they gain the ability to control with fire both the surroundings of Kostiantynivka and the area beyond it. In other words, they gain a tactical advantage in the battles for Kostiantynivka.
The war for logistics is now continuing on the main axis of the occupiers' offensive, Pokrovsk. By cutting the direct route from Kostiantynivka here, the enemy is trying to deprive our units of the ability to rotate, as well as to deliver ammunition and supplies.
A particularly difficult situation has developed precisely between the settlements of Mirnohrad and Kostiantynivka, where the enemy has broken through and crossed the road connecting Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka, and is trying to advance both toward Pokrovsk, bypassing the city from the northeast and toward Kostiantynivka. In other words, to successfully reach the Druzhkivka-Dobropilya line to firmly establish a significant foothold there, and to subsequently create an undeniable overhang and, well, a crucial precondition so to speak, that would definitively allow them to further advance their positions or to attempt to completely encircle the aforementioned settlements.
However, our command says that there is no talk of encirclement. On the contrary, the armed forces of Ukraine have established new supply routes into the city and, thanks to intelligence, have a complete understanding of where the enemy is and what they are currently capable of.
The situation is tense, but our Cossacks are coping, regularly rotating troops and holding intense mobile battles. If the units weren't rotated regularly, well, it would be very difficult. So in order to maintain high combat effectiveness, rotations are carried out constantly. This includes electronic warfare and air defense systems that are being deployed. I mean, these can even be rifle units that are directly involved with shotguns, intercepting those same UAVs. It's also important to understand which logistical routes are more or less safe at the moment, where the enemy is currently located, and so on. In other words, it's a set of measures and actions that allow us to carry out logistics and, accordingly, defend ourselves effectively.
At the same time, for the second week in a row, information has been periodically appearing in the media about Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups entering Pokrovsk. These raids of 3 to 5 people each were loudly proclaimed as taking control of part of the city by Rustav. However, the command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that while such groups did exist, all sabotage and reconnaissance groups in Pokrovsk have now been eliminated and currently pose no strategic threat.
Their primary and most crucial task is reconnaissance. They are essentially expendables, individuals who are fully prepared to face their demise today or perhaps tomorrow. However, their vital mission is precisely to utilize their own precious lives to meticulously expose and reveal our entire defense system within the city's boundaries. Where a group passes through without resistance, it means the field is open. Where they encounter resistance where they are destroyed, those are centers of resistance. And all of this is monitored by their electronic intelligence and their drones. In other words, it appears that the Russians are meticulously mapping out their own comprehensive plan for the city's defense, and this clearly indicates that they are indeed actively preparing for a direct and significant assault on Pokrovsk, a crucial strategic point.
The General Staff notes that despite the enormous pressure in the Donetsk region, over the past day the occupiers have also continued offensive actions along the entire front line. In Sumy, Kharkiv and the south, the enemy's efforts were unsuccessful. On the contrary, the armed forces of Ukraine advanced in the Lyman direction. As a result, the settlement of Malivka has returned to Ukrainian control.
Russia is once again indulging itself in illusions. They launched a new drone equipped with anti-tank mines and thought they already controlled the skies. But that was not the case. The armed forces of Ukraine responded instantly and powerfully. This is a real trump card. The latest Mangus drone followed by the Vector. These are not just machines, they are predators that ruthlessly take out enemy targets, even deep behind enemy lines. The Kremlin is in panic. What else do we have in our aerial arsenal? Which combat birds are already preparing for takeoff? You'll find out right now.
Shahits with anti-tank mines. This is how the Russian Federation has modernized these strike UAVs, equipping them with cassettes containing PTM-3 anti-tank mines. It was exactly these drones that struck several regions of Ukraine on August 4th. This was reported by Ukrainian radio technology specialist Serhiy Flash Bezkresnov on his social media.
Unfortunately, we have a new problem. Today, in several regions at once, shahits were detected, each carrying 2 cassettes with PTM-3 anti-tank mines under their wings. This mine is equipped with a magnetic detonator and reacts to vehicles nearby. For now, the enemy's intention remains unclear. What do they want to mine and why? Maybe these are terrorist attacks on public roads, or perhaps an attempt to target our agriculture.
Similarly, Russian loitering munitions like the Lancet have started to be equipped with PTM-3 anti-tank mines, which weigh 5 kilograms and can penetrate 60mm armor.
The use of PTM-3 solves several problems at once. First, it reduces the cost and simplifies production. The mines are integrated into the drone without complex custom assembly. Second, it increases the reliability of hitting the target. The finished munition is specifically designed to combat armored vehicles. Third, it eliminates production risks. A mass-produced engineering munition is easier to put into serial production.
The occupiers' army wants to solve the shortage of Kaliber-type missiles with jet-powered shaheds. The main focus is on the mass production and simplicity of UAV manufacturing. Small design modifications, such as installing anti-tank mines, make these UAVs quite dangerous.
The main principle is a large number of aerial targets and the combination of attacks due to the fact that now a jet-powered shahed will appear, which in essence will be able to replace the functions that cruise missiles used to perform. That is, these are higher speeds, a different interception principle and a different detection principle.
In turn, Ukrainian engineers have invented another effective way to shoot down Russian shaheds, a drone interceptor called Mongoose. This anti-aircraft drone is jet-powered and not a kamikaze. It is reusable. A speed of up to 320 kilometers per hour, a maximum flight altitude of 5,000 meters, and an operational range of 12 kilometers.
The Mongoose is a reusable drone with a jet engine and an automatic guidance system. According to the developer's concept, it approaches shaheds, fires a buckshot charge at the engine or propeller of the enemy drone, and then either continues its mission or returns for refueling and reloading.
The first squadron of these drones has already been created. Currently, Mongooses are being actively delivered to anti-aircraft missile brigades. In addition to domestic developments, Ukraine has also successfully localized the production of German reconnaissance UAVs of the Vector type, which are being effectively used on the front lines. The military explains the main advantage of these drones is their optics.
It switches to thermal mode, and if the sun has already risen high enough above the horizon, it heats up the gun shield, well, the barrel, so you can tell the difference. This is a very, very big advantage that is combined. If you need to, you just switch. You don't have to turn back. We switch to the camera and see that this warm spot is a cat. From 800 meters away, you can distinguish a cat. You can even see what color it is.
It's not just about defensive capabilities. Ukrainian drones are also delivering serious strikes to the enemy's rear. Moreover, domestic UAVs stand out not by quantity but by quality. One of the latest strikes on Russia was on the Novokuybyshevsk oil refinery. After the attack by Ukrainian drones, it ceased operations and the Ryazan refinery halved its output. Oh!
Wow, that's truly really amazing.
Our strikes deep in the rear of the Russian Federation, the drones that force Russia to activate a blanket mode and close its airspace, are having an impact on Russia's economy and the capabilities of the Russian Federation. Therefore, from our strategic point of view, we absolutely need to actively and comprehensively strengthen our inherent capabilities when it specifically comes to advanced strike drones, meticulously creating not just highly sophisticated drones that can effectively bypass complex electronic warfare systems and remain completely undetected by robust air defense networks, but also those that can reliably carry a very substantial and significant payload.
Thanks to developments in the UAV sector, Ukraine has been able to successfully hold back the aggressor and deliver effective strikes. For its part, Russia is also developing this area quite successfully.
That's all from me. This was Daria Gutkalo. Even more hellish news from the front in our next episode.